The girl whispered, "Daddy, this is my Christmas present, the Apache widow." Inside the warm, cozy house, the Smith family was bustling around their living room. Christmas was just a few days away, and excitement hung in the air like sparkling lights. The tree in the corner was already decorated with shiny ornaments, twinkling fairy lights, and a golden star perched perfectly on top. The sound of Christmas music floated softly from a small speaker in the corner, mixing with the gentle laughter of Sarah's little sibling as they chased each other around the room. Sarah, 12 years old, sat quietly on the edge of the couch, her small hands clutching a tiny, carefully wrapped box. Unlike her younger siblings, who were caught up in the chaos of ribbons, laughter, and the smell of cookies baking in the oven, Sarah's mind was elsewhere. She had been counting down the days for months, sneaking glances at the small treasure she had hidden in her closet. This wasn't just any gift. It was a gift she had chosen and saved up for herself. She had spent her allowance carefully, skipping small treats and putting aside every coin she earned from helping neighbors and doing chores. Her eyes shone with a mixture of excitement and nerves as she thought about the moment she would finally give it to her father. John, Sarah's father, walked into the room carrying a tray of hot cocoa. He smiled at the sight of his children laughing and the glowing tree. He always loved Christmas, but this year felt extra special because he noticed how responsible and thoughtful Sarah had become. He had watched her save, plan, and keep her secret for weeks. "All right, everyone," he said with a chuckle, "let's take a short break and enjoy our cocoa before dinner." The children eagerly gathered around the tray, grabbing their cups. Sarah stayed behind for a moment, taking a deep breath. Her heart was beating fast. She looked at the box in her hands and whispered softly to herself, "I hope he likes it. I hope he really likes it." The words were barely audible, but they carried a world of meaning. She had never given a gift like this before, one that wasn't just store-bought, but one she had worked hard for, planned, and kept a secret. Finally, the moment arrived. John walked over, setting his cup down, and noticed Sarah holding the small box. He raised an eyebrow, curious. "What's that you've got there, Sarah?" he asked, his voice warm and gentle. Sarah's lips curled into a small, mysterious smile. She knelt in front of him, holding the box close to her chest. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly with excitement, "this is my Christmas present, the Apache widow." John's eyes widened in surprise. For a moment he wasn't sure what she meant. "The Apache widow," he repeated, tilting his head in curiosity. Sarah nodded, her eyes sparkling with pride. She carefully handed the box to him. As he opened it, his expression changed from confusion to amazement. Inside was a perfectly crafted model of a helicopter. It was painted in dark shades of green and black, with tiny, intricate details that made it look like it could take off at any moment. Every part of the model was precise: the rotors, the cockpit, even the tiny decals on the sides. John could see the effort, time, and thought that Sarah had put into this gift. "It's incredible," John said, lifting the model gently out of the box. "Where did you find something like this?" Sarah beamed with pride. "I saved up my allowance for months. I read about it online, and I knew it was special. It's called the Apache widow because it's rare and powerful. I wanted you to have it, Daddy." Her words carried a sincerity that made John's heart swell with pride. This wasn't just a toy, it was a symbol of her hard work, determination, and thoughtfulness. John knelt down beside her, holding the model carefully. "Sarah, this is amazing. I'm so proud of you. You didn't just buy a gift. You planned it, saved for it, and chose something that really means something to both of us." Sarah's small hands reached out to touch the model, feeling the smooth surface and the delicate craftsmanship. "I wanted to give you something that shows how much I care," she whispered. For the next few minutes they sat together, examining the model. Sarah explained the details she had learned about Apache helicopters, their design, their history, and why they were considered powerful machines. John listened, fascinated by her knowledge and excitement. He could see the spark of curiosity in her eyes, the same spark he remembered having when he was her age. It was a proud, heartwarming moment for him, a moment he knew he would never forget. As the evening continued, Sarah's siblings noticed what was happening and gathered around, eager to see the gift. "Wow, that's amazing," her little brother exclaimed. Her younger sister nodded, eyes wide with amazement. "It looks so real," they said in unison. Sarah smiled, happy that her family shared in her excitement. The room was filled not only with Christmas lights but with a warm feeling of pride, love, and togetherness. After a while, John placed the model on the small shelf in the living room, where it could be seen but was safe from curious hands. "Every time I look at this," he said, glancing at Sarah, "I'll remember this moment, your hard work, your thoughtfulness, and the love you put into it." Sarah hugged him tightly, feeling a sense of accomplishment and happiness that went far beyond the gift itself. That night, as the family settled down for bed, Sarah lay awake thinking about the day. The lights from the Christmas tree flickered softly in her room, casting shadows on the walls. She couldn't help but smile, knowing she had made her father proud and shared a moment they would both remember forever. It wasn't just a model helicopter. It was a story of effort, care, and the kind of love that makes Christmas truly special. The snow fell gently outside, blanketing the world in white, while inside, a small gift had created memories that would last a lifetime. For Sarah, this Christmas wasn't just about presents or decorations. It was about the joy of giving, the pride of hard work, and the bond she shared with her father, a bond that would grow stronger with every passing year. And as she drifted off to sleep, the whispered words she had spoken earlier echoed softly in her mind. "Daddy, this is my Christmas present, the Apache widow." The morning after Christmas, the Smith household was alive with energy once again. Sarah woke up early, as she always did, filled with excitement. Even though the tree lights had dimmed overnight and the ornaments rested quietly on the branches, the memory of the previous evening still made her heart race. Her gift to her father, the Apache widow, had been the highlight of Christmas, and she was eager to share more about it. Today, she wanted to tell her father everything she had learned about it, the stories, the history, and why it was so special. She hurried downstairs, her slippers barely touching the floor as she ran into the living room. John was already awake, sipping his morning coffee and reading the newspaper, but the sight of Sarah's eager face made him smile. "Good morning, Sarah," he said warmly, setting his cup aside. "You look excited." Sarah's eyes sparkled. "I am, Daddy. Can I show you more about the Apache widow?" John nodded, intrigued. He could see how passionate she had become about the gift. "Of course, show me," he replied. Sarah ran to the small shelf where the model helicopter sat. She picked it up carefully, examining every detail again. The rotors, painted a matte black, caught the light from the morning sun streaming through the window. The cockpit, tiny but detailed, seemed to hold a story of its own. Each part of the model was meticulously crafted, and Sarah could feel the weight of the work that had gone into making it so realistic. "I read about how the Apache helicopters were first designed," Sarah began, her voice steady and full of enthusiasm. "They were built to be fast, strong, and very precise. They could fly low to avoid being seen and were used in important missions." She paused, looking at her father to see his reaction. John nodded, genuinely impressed. He had always encouraged Sarah to follow her curiosity, and it was clear she had taken this gift seriously. "Tell me more," John encouraged, leaning forward slightly. Sarah smiled and continued. "I learned that the Apache widow, specifically, is one of the most famous models because it was used in missions that helped people in dangerous situations. Soldiers called it widow because it was powerful and unstoppable in battle, but I also think it's called that because it protects people, like a guardian." She carefully lifted the model and showed him the tiny details on its sides. "Look at these markings. Each one tells a story about where it's been and what it has done." John listened closely, amazed at how much Sarah had learned. "I can see you've spent a lot of time on this," he said, his voice filled with pride. "It's more than just a gift. You've really understood what it means." Sarah beamed, happy that he appreciated her effort. She loved learning about machines, history, and stories of bravery, but she had never imagined she would get so deeply involved in something as small as a model helicopter. The morning passed quickly as Sarah shared her research with John. She had brought out a notebook filled with drawings, notes, and facts about the Apache widow. Her handwriting was neat, and every page was filled with colorful sketches and diagrams of the helicopter. John admired her dedication and the way she had organized all her thoughts. "You could even write a little book about this someday," he suggested, smiling. Sarah's eyes widened. "Really? You think people would want to read it?" John nodded. "Absolutely. You're learning things most kids your age don't even know, and you're explaining it so clearly." As they talked, Sarah's younger siblings wandered into the room, curious about what was keeping their sister so occupied. "What are you doing?" her little brother asked. Sarah smiled and held up the model. "I'm telling Dad about the Apache widow. It's the helicopter I gave him for Christmas. It's amazing and has a lot of history." Her siblings leaned closer, fascinated by the tiny machine. They didn't fully understand all the details, but they could see their sister's excitement, and that alone was enough to make them interested. John took the opportunity to teach the children a little as well. "The Apache helicopters are designed for precision and safety," he explained gently. "They help protect people and carry out missions that are very important. Your sister has done a lot of research about them, and it's amazing to see how much she has learned." The children listened, eyes wide with admiration, as Sarah explained more facts. She told them about the speed of the helicopter, how it could hover in place, and even how pilots needed to train for years to fly it safely. By noon, the room was filled with a sense of discovery and shared learning. Sarah's mother, noticing the lively discussion, joined them with a tray of sandwiches and hot chocolate. "I see someone is very passionate today," she said, smiling at Sarah. "It's wonderful to see you so curious. I'm proud of you for learning so much and sharing it with your family." Sarah blushed slightly, happy to receive praise from her mother. She carefully placed the model back on the table and continued explaining the history of its design, showing how engineers had worked hard to make it effective in challenging situations. Over the next few hours, Sarah and her father continued to explore the world of Apache helicopters together. They looked at pictures online, watched short videos, and even discussed how the helicopter could be used in real-life rescue operations. John noticed how focused and determined Sarah had become. "You're really thinking like an engineer," he said, impressed. "You're asking questions, finding answers, and understanding the importance of this machine." Sarah's eyes shone with excitement. "I want to learn more, Daddy. Maybe I can even build something like this one day." The afternoon passed quickly. The living room, once just a space for Christmas decorations, had transformed into a little classroom of curiosity. Sarah's siblings wandered in and out, sometimes asking questions, sometimes just watching quietly. Even though they didn't know all the details, they could sense the passion and care in what Sarah was doing. John realized that this simple gift, a small model helicopter, had opened the door to learning, imagination, and family bonding in a way no ordinary toy could. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow across the room, Sarah and John sat together, reviewing all the notes and pictures they had collected. "I'm really proud of you," John said softly. "You didn't just give a gift, you created a story, a memory, and a lesson. You showed me how much thought you can put into something and how much heart you have." Sarah smiled, feeling a deep sense of happiness and accomplishment. This was more than just Christmas joy. It was a moment of growth, understanding, and connection. That evening, Sarah carefully placed the Apache widow back on the shelf, next to her notebook and drawings. She looked at it one last time before going to bed, feeling proud and inspired. It wasn't just a model. It was a symbol of her hard work, curiosity, and the bond she shared with her father. She knew that every time she looked at it, she would remember the excitement of that morning, the pride in her father's eyes, and the joy of learning something new and meaningful. As Sarah drifted off to sleep, her thoughts were filled with ideas for the future. Maybe one day she would build a real helicopter. Maybe she would design machines that could help people and protect them. But for now, she was content knowing that a small gift had sparked curiosity, pride, and a stronger connection with her father. The Apache Widow was more than just a model. It was the beginning of a journey, a memory, and a story that would stay with her forever. After the excitement of Christmas morning and the hours spent exploring the Apache Widow, Sarah found herself thinking about her gift more and more each day. It wasn't just a model helicopter anymore. It had become a doorway into a world she had never fully explored before. She had always been curious about machines, airplanes, and how things worked, but now her curiosity had a clear focus. Every day after school, she would rush home, eager to study the helicopter, read more about its history, or jot down notes in her special notebook. John noticed her growing interest. One evening, as they were having dinner, he looked at Sarah with a thoughtful expression. "You've really become serious about the Apache Widow," he said. "I'm proud of how dedicated you are. But remember, learning isn't just about facts. It's about understanding, asking questions, and thinking about how things work in the real world." Sarah nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. "I want to learn everything about it, Daddy. I want to understand how it works, why it was made, and how it has helped people." After dinner, she carefully carried the model helicopter to her study table. Her room was now filled with little papers, notebooks, and drawings that she had created over the past few days. Each note had facts she had discovered, diagrams she had drawn herself, and questions she wanted to find answers to. She carefully lifted the Apache Widow from its shelf, turning it slowly in her hands, examining the tiny rotors and the cockpit. Every part of it fascinated her, and she felt a deep connection to the machine, as if it were a friend guiding her through a new adventure. Over the next few days, Sarah started reading books about helicopters and aviation. She learned about the first helicopters ever built, how pilots were trained, and the different missions helicopters could perform. She read stories about pilots who had helped people in dangerous situations, and how machines like the Apache Widow were carefully designed to perform even in difficult conditions. Each story inspired her and made her want to learn more. She even started writing her own little stories about the helicopter, imagining it flying on missions to help people and protect them. John often joined her in these sessions, sometimes helping her understand complex ideas in simpler ways. He would point at the diagrams and explain how certain parts worked, or tell her stories about real-life pilots and the challenges they faced. Sarah loved these moments. She realized that learning wasn't just about reading or memorizing facts. It was about understanding the purpose behind things and the people who made them work. The Apache Widow had become a symbol of courage, problem-solving, and responsibility. One afternoon, Sarah decided to share what she had learned with her younger siblings. She gathered them in the living room and began explaining how helicopters worked, what made the Apache Widow special, and why pilots needed to be careful and brave. Her little brother and sister listened, fascinated, asking questions and pointing at the model as Sarah demonstrated. John watched from the doorway, feeling proud of how Sarah had grown. He realized that the small Christmas gift had transformed into a tool for learning, teaching, and inspiring others. Sarah's research didn't stop there. She began exploring related topics, like how engines worked, how helicopters were designed, and even the physics that allowed them to hover in the air. She drew diagrams in her notebook, labeled every part, and wrote short explanations in simple words so she could remember them easily. Each day, she added something new, building her knowledge bit by bit. She sometimes spent hours at the table, completely absorbed, forgetting about snacks, homework, or even the time. It wasn't work, it was a joyful adventure. John noticed her dedication and decided to encourage her further. One weekend, he suggested they build a small project together. "Why don't we try to create a simple model of our own?" he said. "It doesn't have to fly, it's just a way to understand how things fit together." Sarah's eyes lit up. "Yes." "Can we make it look like the Apache widow?" John smiled. "Sure, we can try." They spent the weekend gathering materials, cutting pieces carefully, and assembling the frame. Sarah learned to follow instructions, measure carefully, and be patient when things didn't fit perfectly the first time. She realized that creating something, even a small model, required thought, effort, and perseverance, lessons that went beyond just helicopters. As they worked, John shared more stories from his own childhood, how he had built small machines, solved problems, and learned through trial and error. Sarah listened intently, feeling a connection not just to the helicopter, but to her father's experiences as well. She began to understand that the Apache widow wasn't just about a machine. It was about learning, persistence, and using knowledge to achieve goals. Each new fact she learned, each new idea she explored, made her more confident and inspired. The project also taught her about responsibility. She had to take care of the model she was building, make sure pieces weren't lost, and handle tools carefully. Every step required attention and thought. She realized that learning wasn't only about reading or imagining, it was about applying knowledge in real life. And with every small success, whether it was fixing a rotor or drawing an accurate diagram, she felt proud. Her passion soon extended beyond her room. Sarah began explaining her discoveries to her friends at school, telling them about the history of helicopters, the skills pilots needed, and the lessons she had learned from her own research. Some friends were surprised to learn so much from someone their age. Others became curious and asked her to teach them more. Sarah realized that sharing knowledge made her experience even richer. It wasn't just about her. It was about inspiring others and helping them see the wonder in learning. By the end of the week, Sarah had completed a small presentation in her notebook. She had carefully written down all the lessons she had learned, the diagrams she had drawn, and even some fun facts about the Apache widow. She brought it to her father one evening, proudly showing him every page. John smiled, impressed by her dedication. "Sarah, this is incredible," he said. "You've not only learned so much, but you've also organized it in a way that anyone could understand. You've turned your curiosity into knowledge." Sarah felt a warm sense of pride. She realized that learning, effort, and sharing knowledge were more important than any reward. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, she reflected on everything she had learned. She thought about the history of helicopters, the pilot's stories, and her own journey of discovery. The Apache widow was no longer just a model, it was a teacher, a symbol of patience, dedication, and courage. She understood that the lessons she had learned were not limited to machines, they applied to life itself. Persistence, curiosity, careful observation, and sharing knowledge were skills she would carry with her forever. As she drifted off to sleep, Sarah made a promise to herself. She would continue learning, exploring, and sharing her discoveries. She would keep the Apache widow close, not just as a model, but as a reminder that curiosity and hard work could open doors to incredible adventures. Every time she looked at it, she would remember the joy of discovery, the pride of accomplishment, and the strength of family support. The model had started as a simple Christmas gift, but it had become a lifelong inspiration, a symbol of learning, growth, and the limitless possibilities that curiosity could bring. The days after Christmas passed in a blur of school, chores, and daily routines, but for Sarah, the Excitement of the Apache widow had not faded. In fact, it had grown even stronger. The model helicopter, which had begun as a Christmas gift, had now become the centerpiece of her learning, creativity, and family bonding. Sarah had been spending most of her free time studying the helicopter, reading books, and creating diagrams in her notebook. But what made this period truly special was how it began to involve her entire family. One Saturday morning, John noticed Sarah carefully taking out her model helicopter and her notebooks. He looked at her with a smile. "Sarah, I have an idea," he said. "Why don't we create a little display area for your Apache widow? You could make it look like a mini hangar with labels, diagrams, and all the notes you've collected. It will be a special project for all of us." Sarah's eyes lit up with excitement. "Yes, that would be amazing," she exclaimed. She quickly ran to gather cardboard, markers, and other craft materials that could help build the display. Her younger siblings, curious as always, came running into the room. "What are you doing?" her brother asked, pointing at the pile of supplies. Sarah smiled and explained the idea. "We're going to make a mini hangar for the Apache widow. It will be like a little museum for our model helicopter. And you can help too." At first they hesitated, unsure how they could contribute, but Sarah patiently explained the tasks they could do, coloring the walls, making small signs, or arranging parts of the display. John watched as his children gathered around the table. "This is perfect," he thought. "They're learning teamwork, creativity, and responsibility all through a fun project." He joined in as well, helping Sarah measure cardboard pieces, cut shapes, and glue parts together. Together, they began constructing the base of the hangar, carefully making sure everything was stable. The living room became a flurry of activity. Papers, scissors, markers, and small pieces of cardboard spread out everywhere. But it was filled with laughter, conversation, and collaboration. Sarah took the lead in designing the display. She decided where the model helicopter would sit, which diagrams would be placed around it, and how the little labels would explain the different parts. Her father assisted her in placing the heavier pieces and making sure everything looked balanced. Meanwhile, her siblings took on the tasks they were capable of. Her little brother carefully colored a tiny landing pad for the helicopter, while her sister decorated a small backdrop with snowflakes and stars. It was chaotic at times, but Sarah encouraged them, making sure everyone felt included and proud of their contribution. As the project progressed, Sarah realized how much she enjoyed working with her family. She had always loved spending time with her father, but this project allowed her siblings to be part of something meaningful as well. She explained facts about the Apache widow while they worked, how the rotors moved, why the helicopter was designed in a certain way, and the missions it had been used for. Her siblings listened attentively, occasionally asking questions, and Sarah felt proud to share her knowledge. John noticed how engaged everyone was and felt a deep sense of joy. By the afternoon, the mini hangar was starting to take shape. Sarah had arranged her notebooks, sketches, and diagrams around the model helicopter, creating a small but detailed exhibition. She even made a tiny control tower out of cardboard, complete with small buttons and screens drawn carefully on paper. Her siblings helped decorate the walls with stars, maps, and miniature trees, making the display visually appealing. John stepped back to admire their work. "This is incredible," he said. "It looks like a real museum display. You've all done an amazing job." The family continued to work on the project over the next few days. Sarah added more details to the display, including small facts about pilots and the history of helicopters. Her father helped her research additional information online, making sure everything she added was accurate and understandable. Sarah's siblings contributed by making colorful signs and little props, such as tiny barrels, landing pads, and even miniature cones for the hangar area. The room was lively, messy, and full of energy, but Sarah loved every minute of it. As the hangar neared completion, Sarah noticed something remarkable. The project wasn't just about building a display, it was teaching her family valuable lessons. She saw her siblings learning to follow instructions, work carefully, and take pride in their contributions. She saw her father modeling patience, creativity, and encouragement. And she realized that the Apache widow, which had started as a Christmas gift, had become a catalyst for bonding, learning, and teamwork. One evening, after putting the finishing touches on the display, Sarah invited her parents to see it. Her father stepped into the room first, his eyes widening in amazement. "Sarah, this is incredible," he said. "You've created something truly special. Look at all the details, the sketches, the diagrams, the labels, and the helicopter looks amazing in the hangar." Her mother walked in behind him, equally impressed. "I love it," she said. "You've all worked together to create something beautiful. And Sarah, I can see how proud you are of what you've learned and built." Sarah's siblings beamed with pride as well. They had contributed, and even though their roles were smaller, they felt part of the project. Sarah smiled, realizing how rewarding it felt to work as a team. She carefully placed the Apache widow in the center of the hangar, making sure it was secure and positioned perfectly. "This isn't just my project," she said softly. "It belongs to all of us. We did it together." John smiled, nodding. "Exactly, Sarah. And this is a memory we'll all share for years to come." The hangar became more than just a display. It became a family tradition. Every weekend they would gather around it, adding new facts, drawings, or decorations. Sarah continued to research more about helicopters and aviation, sharing her discoveries with her family. Her siblings became more curious and engaged, asking questions and even making their own little notes. John encouraged their curiosity, teaching them small lessons about science, history, and responsibility. Over time, Sarah noticed how much she had grown through this project. She had learned patience, creativity, and the importance of collaboration. She had learned that even small contributions mattered, and that sharing knowledge and experiences could strengthen relationships. Most importantly, she realized that her gift, the Apache widow, had sparked something much bigger than herself. It had created a sense of connection, pride, and curiosity within her entire family. One snowy afternoon, as the family gathered around the hangar, Sarah reflected on how far they had come. The display was complete, beautiful, and filled with knowledge, but it was also filled with memories. The laughter, the mistakes, the teamwork, and the learning, all of it had created something unforgettable. Sarah looked at her father and siblings, feeling a warmth in her heart. "I never imagined that a small model helicopter could bring us all together like this," she said softly. Her father nodded. "It's not just about the helicopter," he replied. "It's about you, your curiosity, and the love you put into learning and sharing. That's what makes it special." That evening, after the family had tidied up and the room was quiet again, Sarah sat by the hangar, gazing at the Apache widow. She traced the tiny details with her fingers, remembering how much effort everyone had put in. She realized that gifts were not only about the object itself, they were about the memories, experiences, and lessons they inspired. The Apache widow had become more than a model helicopter. It had become a symbol of family, teamwork, creativity, and the joy of learning together. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Sarah felt a deep sense of gratitude. She was grateful for her father, who encouraged her curiosity, her siblings, who joined her in the project, and the small helicopter that had inspired them all. She promised herself that she would continue learning, exploring, and creating with her family. The hangar, the Apache widow, and the memories they had built together would remain with her forever, a reminder that the best gifts are not just objects, but the bonds, lessons, and shared experiences they create. As the months passed, the Apache widow model helicopter remained at the center of Sarah's room, perched carefully in the mini hangar that she and her family had built together. But for Sarah, It was no longer just a display. It had become a symbol of everything she had learned, the time she had spent with her family, and the memories she had created. Each time she glanced at the model, she remembered the excitement of Christmas morning, the hours of research, and the collaborative project that had brought her family closer together. Sarah had grown in ways she had never expected. She had developed a love for learning, a curiosity that seemed to expand every day, and a sense of responsibility for the knowledge she had gained. She found herself explaining concepts to her classmates at school, sharing stories about helicopters, and even inspiring her friends to pursue their own projects. The small model she had given her father had transformed into a bridge between her interests, her creativity, and her ability to share with others. One quiet afternoon, Sarah's father, John, came into her room and sat beside her. He glanced at the display with a soft smile. "You've done something really amazing here, Sarah," he said. "It's more than just a model. It's a record of your growth, your curiosity, and your hard work. I hope you know how proud I am of you." Sarah blushed, feeling a warmth in her chest. "I couldn't have done it without you and everyone else," she said softly. "It wasn't just about the helicopter, it was about learning, creating, and working together." John nodded. "Exactly, that's the most important part. Gifts are special, yes, but the experiences and memories you build around them are what truly last, and you've created memories that will stay with all of us forever." Sarah looked at the helicopter again, tracing the tiny details with her fingers. She thought about the early mornings and late nights she had spent learning about its history, the diagrams she had drawn, and the time she had spent teaching her siblings. Every effort had been worth it, and she felt proud of herself in a way she had never felt before. Over time, Sarah began to expand her interests even further. Inspired by the Apache Widow, she started exploring other machines, engineering concepts, and the stories behind technological advancements. She read about planes, rockets, and even space exploration, jotting down notes and sketches in her special notebook. Her curiosity grew, fueled by the lessons she had learned from her first project. She understood that learning was a lifelong journey and that every small step mattered. The model also became a source of inspiration for her family. Her younger siblings, who had helped decorate the mini hangar, now showed more interest in learning themselves. They asked questions, explored small projects, and even started creating their own little models. Sarah's father encouraged this, turning it into weekend sessions where the family would work on creative tasks together. The small helicopter had sparked a culture of curiosity, creativity, and shared learning within their home, and everyone felt its impact. During school, Sarah's enthusiasm did not go unnoticed. Her teachers appreciated her passion for knowledge and her ability to explain complex ideas in simple terms. She was often asked to share her research and projects with the class, and she did so with pride and confidence. The skills she had developed while learning about the Apache Widow, researching, organizing information, presenting ideas, and teaching others, became valuable tools that extended far beyond her family and home. As Sarah reflected on everything she had learned, she realized that the helicopter had taught her more than facts about machines or history. It had taught her patience, persistence, creativity, and the importance of teamwork. It had shown her the joy of discovery and the satisfaction of accomplishing something meaningful. And most importantly, it had given her a way to connect with her family, sharing experiences that strengthened their bonds and created lasting memories. One winter evening, nearly a year after Christmas, Sarah sat by the hangar and carefully cleaned the model helicopter, making sure each rotor and detail was dust-free. She thought about how far she had come since that first day. She whispered, "Daddy, this is my Christmas present, the Apache Widow." She smiled, remembering her father's surprised expression and the pride in his eyes. That simple moment had sparked a journey that had changed her life in ways she could never have imagined. Sarah's mother, noticing her daughter's thoughtful expression, came into the room and sat beside her. "You've grown so much, Sarah," she said softly. "I can see how much you've learned, how curious you've become, and how much effort you put into everything. That small gift you gave your father turned into something truly extraordinary." Sarah nodded, feeling a mixture of gratitude and happiness. "It wasn't just the helicopter," she replied. "It was everything around it, the learning, the family, the teamwork, and the memories. I've learned so much more than I expected." Her father joined them, sitting on the edge of her bed. He looked at the model and then at Sarah. "This gift," he said, "is a reminder that small things can have a big impact. You've taken a simple idea and turned it into a journey of growth, inspiration, and family bonding. That's something you'll carry with you for the rest of your life." Sarah felt a deep sense of pride and warmth. She realized that the Apache widow was more than a model. It was a symbol of her determination, curiosity, and the love shared between family members. Over the next few years, Sarah continued to learn, grow, and explore. She expanded her interests into science, engineering, and history, always remembering the lessons she had learned from the Apache widow. She became more confident in her abilities, more willing to ask questions, and more eager to share her discoveries with others. Every time she looked at the model, she remembered that Christmas morning, her whispered words, and the joy of giving something meaningful. As she grew older, Sarah began mentoring younger children in her neighborhood and at school. She taught them how to be curious, how to explore new subjects, and how to take pride in their work. She shared the story of her gift and the lessons it had taught her. Children listened, inspired by her journey, and many began their own projects and discoveries. Sarah realized that the spirit of learning, giving, and curiosity could extend far beyond her family. It could inspire others to grow and achieve their own dreams. Years later, long after she had outgrown her childhood room, the Apache widow still sat proudly on a shelf in her home. But it was no longer just a model helicopter. It was a symbol of determination, curiosity, and family love. Every time Sarah glanced at it, she remembered the hard work, the lessons, and the joy of shared experiences. She smiled, knowing that her small Christmas gift had become something much bigger, a source of inspiration, pride, and lasting memories. Sarah often reflected on that day. She whispered, "Daddy, this is my Christmas present, the Apache widow." She realized that the real gift wasn't the helicopter itself. It was the journey it had started, the lessons it had taught, and the bonds it had strengthened. It had inspired her curiosity, nurtured her creativity, and given her confidence to explore new challenges. Most importantly, it had reminded her of the power of small gestures, love, and dedication. And so, every holiday season, Sarah would gather her family around the display, sharing stories about her journey with the Apache widow. They would laugh about the fun moments during the project, marvel at the details of the model, and remember how a simple Christmas gift had turned into a lifelong inspiration. The helicopter had become more than a toy. It was a story, a memory, and a symbol of everything that made learning, family, and giving so special. Through the years, Sarah carried these lessons with her into school projects, competitions, and even her future career aspirations. She remembered the sense of pride she felt when she shared her knowledge, the excitement of discovery, and the joy of creating something meaningful with her family. The Apache widow had started as a small gift, but it had grown into a symbol of potential, determination, and the power of nurturing curiosity. In the end, Sarah understood that gifts were never just about what they were. They were about the stories, memories, and lessons that came with them. Her Christmas gift had given her more than she could have imagined. It had given her confidence, knowledge, family bonds, and inspiration to explore the world. And every time she looked at the Apache widow, she felt that same spark of excitement and joy she had felt the moment she whispered, "Daddy, this is my Christmas present, the Apache widow."